Talk Ava. Learn English with confidence.
I said something earlier today and it stayed in my mind longer than it should have. I was talking to a friend, just a normal conversation, and I said, he said me the truth. I didn't stop, I kept talking, but inside I knew something was off. It wasn't a big mistake, but it didn't feel right.
That kind of moment is more important than it looks. When something feels slightly wrong but you can't explain it, it usually means your instinct is noticing a pattern that you haven't fully understood yet.
Yes, exactly. I understood what I meant, and I think the other person understood me too. But still, it didn't sound natural. That's the part that bothers me.
Let's stay with that feeling for a second instead of fixing it immediately. There's something useful there. By the way, welcome to Talk Ava. If you enjoy learning English through real conversations like this, where we focus on how things actually sound and feel, you can follow along and stay with us.
That's true, because this kind of confusion happens all the time. I know the words say and tell, but when I try to use them quickly, I'm not always confident.
Let's look at your sentence again. He said me the truth. Now compare it with he told me the truth. What changes when you hear those two?
The second one feels natural. I wouldn't think twice before saying it. The first one feels slightly broken, even though the idea is the same.
That's the interesting part. The meaning is almost identical, but the sentence doesn't behave the same way. Sometimes it's not wrong, it just doesn't sound right.
That line explains exactly how I felt. It wasn't about meaning, it was about how it sounded.
Now let's test something simple. If I say, he said something, does that sound complete to you?
Yes, that sounds fine. I don't need anything else there.
Now try this. He told something.
That sounds incomplete. It feels like something is missing.
So even without thinking about rules, you can feel that one word needs something extra and the other doesn't always need it.
That's interesting. I never really noticed that before. I just thought they were very similar.
Let's try another pair. She said something interesting and she told me something interesting.
Both sound natural, but the second one feels more direct because it includes a person.
Now change it slightly. She said me something interesting.
That sounds wrong again. It breaks the pattern somehow.
And that reaction is what we're focusing on. You can already feel when something doesn't fit, even if you don't have a rule for it.
So my instinct is working, but I don't fully understand why.
Exactly. Now let's go a step further. Do you think say and tell are basically the same?
I used to think that. They both relate to giving information, so I assumed they could be used in similar ways.
That assumption is where the confusion begins. The meaning overlaps, but the way they fit into sentences is different.
So it's not about meaning anymore, it's about usage.
Yes, and that's an important shift. Same meaning does not mean same usage.
That explains why I keep making small mistakes. I focus on what I want to say, but not on how the sentence is built.
Let's test your instinct again. Which one sounds better? He said me something, or he said something to me?
He said something to me sounds correct. The other one feels wrong.
Now try this one. He told me something, or he told something to me?
The first one feels natural. The second one feels a bit awkward.
So now you have two situations. One word works better with a direct structure, and the other needs a small connection like to.
This is where it starts to feel a bit confusing. It's not just the word, it's also the structure around it.
That's right. Let me ask you something, and you can think about it. Which one sounds more natural? She said me the answer, or she told me the answer?
She told me the answer feels correct. The first one doesn't work.
Now try this one. She said the answer to me, and she told the answer to me.
The first one sounds okay, but the second one feels strange.
So even when both sentences are possible, one feels smoother in real usage.
Yes, and that's where I get stuck. Sometimes both feel possible, but one is clearly better.
That's because you're starting to notice patterns, not just meanings. Let's try a slightly tricky one. Which sounds more natural? He said to me that he is coming, or he told me that he is coming?
Both sound correct, but the second one feels more natural and direct.
That's a good observation. Now here's the important part. You know the meaning of both words, but you're still deciding based on how the sentence feels.
Yes, and that's what makes it difficult. I understand the words, but I hesitate when I speak.
That hesitation is part of the process. You're moving from meaning to usage, and that takes time.
I also feel a bit frustrated sometimes. I know the words, but I still make mistakes like he said me the truth.
That frustration is normal. It means you're becoming aware of the difference. Before, you wouldn't even notice it.
That's true. Earlier, I would just say it and move on. Now I stop and think about it.
And that's progress. The more you notice these small differences, the more natural your choices will become.
So instead of asking, what does this word mean, I should ask, how does this word fit in the sentence?
Yes, that question will guide you better. Once you understand how the word behaves, the meaning becomes easier to use.
I can already feel a small shift. It's still confusing, but now I know what to look for.
And that's the right place to be. We'll build on this and make it clearer step by step.
I think I'm starting to notice something, but I want to test it in different situations. When I look at simple sentences, they feel clear, but when I change the situation even a little, I get confused again.
That's a good place to be. Let's take one simple idea and move it through different situations. Start with this. He said something. How does that feel to you?
It feels complete. I understand that he spoke even if I don't know what he said or to whom.
Now change it slightly. He told me something.
That feels more specific. Now I know the message is directed at me.
So the message is similar, but one sentence includes a receiver and the other doesn't need it.
So tell seems to require a person, while say can stand on its own.
That's a useful way to see it. Now try this. He told something.
That sounds incomplete. It feels like something's missing again.
And that missing piece is the receiver. The sentence doesn't feel finished without it.
So tell almost always needs someone to receive the message.
Yes, and now let's add a small context change. Imagine someone is speaking in a meeting. You could say, he said something important.
That works. It feels natural.
Now imagine the same situation, but you want to show who received the message. What would you say?
He told me something important.
Good. Now try to remove the person again. He told something important.
That still feels wrong, so the context doesn't fix it. The structure still matters.
Exactly. Context helps, but the structure must match the word. Now let's add time into this. If you say, he said something yesterday, how does that feel?
That sounds fine. It just tells me when it happened.
Now change it. He told me something yesterday.
That also works. It feels complete.
So time doesn't affect the structure here. The key difference is still the presence of the receiver.
So even when I add more details, the basic pattern stays the same.
Yes, and that's what you need to notice. The structure carries the meaning more than the individual word.
Let me try something. If I say, she said her name, that sounds fine. But if I say, she told her name, that sounds wrong.
And why does it feel wrong?
Because tell needs someone. It feels like something is missing again.
That's the pattern becoming clearer. Now let me ask you something directly. Which one feels more complete? He told me something or he told something?
He told me something feels complete. The other one feels unfinished.
Good. Now let's move to the next layer because this is where people actually get stuck.
I feel like it's already getting tricky.
Listen carefully to these and go with what feels natural. First one, say me the answer or tell me the answer.
Tell me the answer feels correct. The first one sounds wrong.
Now try this. He said to me the answer and he told me the answer.
Both sound possible, but the second one feels more natural and direct.
That's an important detail. Sometimes both sentences are correct, but one fits better in real usage.
So it's not just about right or wrong, it's about what feels smoother.
Exactly. Now try another pair. Speak me later or speak to me later.
Speak to me later sounds correct. The other one doesn't work.
Now compare it with talk to me later.
That also sounds natural. It feels similar to speak to me.
So now you can see that some words need small connectors like to make sense.
So the structure around the word is just as important as the word itself.
Yes, and this is where many learners make mistakes. They focus on the main word and ignore how it connects to the rest of the sentence.
Let me test something. Which sounds better? He said me something or he said something to me?
What do you think?
He said something to me sounds correct. The other one feels wrong.
And that's because say often needs that extra connection when you include a person.
So tell connects directly, but say it needs a bridge like to.
That's a helpful way to see it. Now let's try a slightly more complex one. Which sounds better? He said to me that he is coming, or he told me that he is coming?
That's the subtle difference. Both are acceptable, but one is more common in everyday speech.
This is where it gets confusing again. If both are correct, how do I choose?
You choose based on what feels natural and how the sentence flows. You know the word, but not how it fits.
That line explains the problem clearly. I know the words, but I don't always know how to place them.
And that's why we're focusing on patterns. Once you understand how the word fits into the sentence, your choices become easier.
I can feel that happening, but I still hesitate sometimes.
That hesitation is part of the learning process. You're building awareness, and that takes time.
I also notice that when I hear correct sentences, I can recognize them more easily now.
That's a strong sign of progress. You're not just learning, you're noticing.
So now I'm thinking about the word, the structure, and the connection between them.
Yes, and as we continue, you'll see how these patterns apply in even more real-life situations.
I feel like I'm getting more comfortable with the patterns, but then I hear a sentence and everything becomes confusing again. It's like I understand it, but at the same time, something feels off.
That's a very important stage. Let's look at a sentence that creates that feeling. Listen carefully. He told that he is coming.
That sounds wrong immediately. I wouldn't say that.
But if you think about it, the meaning is clear. Someone gave information about his arrival. So why does it feel wrong?
That's exactly the problem. I understand the sentence, but it still doesn't sound natural.
This is what we call a break moment. The sentence is close to correct, but it doesn't match how people actually use the language.
So what would be the natural way to say it?
You could say, he said that he is coming, or he told me that he is coming.
Now, both of those sound right. So the issue is not the idea, it's how the sentence is built.
Yes, and this is the key shift. Structure pattern is more important than grammar correctness in many cases.
That's interesting because I always thought grammar was everything.
Grammar matters, but it doesn't always guarantee that a sentence will sound natural. Correct grammar doesn't guarantee natural English.
That line explains a lot. I've probably made many sentences that were correct but didn't sound natural.
Most learners do. Now look at the difference again. He said that he is coming works because say can connect directly to that, but tell usually needs a person before that structure.
So he told that feels incomplete because there's no receiver.
Exactly. Now let's move into real-life situations because that's where these patterns become clearer. Imagine you're on a phone call and you want to pass a message from someone else. What would you say?
I might say, he told me to call you.
That sounds natural. Now try this. He said me to call you.
That sounds wrong. It feels incomplete again.
So what would be the correct version using say?
He said to me that I should call you, or simply he said I should call you.
Good. You adjusted the structure to fit the word.
So even in a simple phone call, the word changes how I build the sentence.
Yes, and this happens all the time in real conversations. Now let's move to another situation. Imagine you are giving instructions to someone. You say, I told him to wait here.
That sounds natural.
Now try, I said him to wait here.
That doesn't work. It feels broken.
So what would you say instead?
I said to him, wait here, or I told him to wait here.
Exactly. Now think about this for a moment. Which one sounds more natural here? I said to him, wait here, or I told him to wait here.
I told him to wait here feels more direct. The other one feels slightly longer.
That's the nuance. Both are possible, but one is smoother in everyday use.
So sometimes it's not just about correctness, it's about efficiency and flow.
Yes, and that's what makes language feel natural. Now let's move to a third situation. Imagine you are telling a story about someone. You say, she told me a story.
That sounds natural.
Now try, she said me a story.
That doesn't work. It sounds incomplete again.
So what would be the natural version with say?
She said something interesting, or she said a story, but even that feels slightly unusual. Told me a story feels more natural.
That's a good observation. Some combinations are simply more common, and that's part of natural usage.
Let me try another one. If I say, she spoke me about the problem, that sounds wrong.
Yes, because speak usually needs to. What would be the correct version?
She spoke to me about the problem.
Now compare it with she told me about the problem.
Both sound correct, but they feel slightly different. Told feels more direct, while spoke to feels more general.
That's an important difference. Even when both are correct, the tone can change slightly.
So now I'm not only thinking about structure, but also about how the sentence feels.
That's the goal. You're moving beyond rules and starting to notice real usage patterns.
I also notice that I sometimes mix these patterns when I speak quickly. For example, I might say, he told something, and then I realize it sounds incomplete.
That's a natural mistake. Your brain is still connecting the patterns. Over time, those gaps become clearer.
So the more I use these words in real situations, the easier it becomes to choose the right one.
Yes, and that's why practice through real conversation is so effective. You're not just learning words, you're learning how they behave.
I feel like I still make mistakes, but now I can catch them more easily.
And that awareness is what leads to improvement. Once you notice the pattern, you can adjust it.
So the key is not just to understand the words, but to see how they fit into real situations.
Exactly. And as you continue, these patterns will start to feel natural without much effort.
I feel like something is finally starting to connect, but it's not in the way I expected. Earlier, I was trying to remember which word to use, but now it feels like I'm thinking about the sentence differently. It's less about the word itself and more about how everything fits together.
That's the shift we were building toward. Let me put it in a simpler way. You're not choosing a word, you're choosing how the message moves.
That sounds different from what I'm used to. What do you mean by how the message moves?
Think about your first mistake. You said, he said me the truth. The meaning was clear, but the message didn't move correctly in the sentence. It didn't have the right structure to reach the person.
So the issue wasn't the word itself, it was how the message was traveling in the sentence.
Yes. Now break it into parts. When you use say, you're focusing on the message. For example, he said something. The sentence works without a person because the focus is on what was said.
So say doesn't always need a receiver. It can stand alone.
Exactly. Now look at tell. When you use tell, the message almost always moves toward someone. That's why he told me something feels complete, but he told something feels incomplete.
So tell creates a direction. The message goes from one person to another.
That's right. Now add speak. It works differently again. It often focuses on the act of communication or the ability to communicate. For example, she speaks English, or he spoke to me yesterday.
So speak is less about the message and more about the act itself.
Yes. And when you combine all three, you start to see the full picture. You're not choosing a word based on meaning alone. You're choosing based on how the message moves, where it goes, and what part of the action you want to show.
This explains a lot. Before, I was trying to replace one word with another, thinking they were similar. Now I see that each word creates a different structure.
And that's why the confusion happens. You know the meaning, but you don't always see how the word fits into the sentence.
So instead of asking, what does this word mean? I should ask, How does this word move the message?
That's the right question. And here's another way to remember it. It's not vocabulary, it's direction.
That line makes it very clear. It's not about memorizing words, it's about understanding how they behave.
Now connect this idea to what you learned earlier. When you said, "He said me the truth," the message didn't have the right path. But when you say, "He told me the truth," the direction becomes clear.
Yes, and that's why it sounds natural. The structure supports the meaning.
Exactly. Now try to apply this in a few situations and see how it feels.
Let me try. If I say, she said something interesting, that feels natural because I'm focusing on the message.
Good. Now change it slightly.
She told me something interesting. That also works because now the message has a clear receiver.
Exactly. Now try something with speak.
He spoke to me yesterday. That feels correct because it describes the act of communication.
You're using all three correctly now, and more importantly, you're choosing based on how the message moves.
I still feel a small pause before I speak, but it's much clearer than before. Earlier, I would just guess. Now I'm thinking about direction.
That pause is normal. It shows that you're becoming more aware. With time, that hesitation will become shorter.
Let me try a slightly longer sentence. If I say, he told me that he is coming, that feels correct. But if I say, he said that he is coming, that also works, just with a slightly different focus.
That's a good observation. Both are correct, but the structure changes the feeling slightly.
I think I understand it better now. I'm not just choosing words randomly. I'm thinking about how the sentence needs to work.
And that's the goal. Once you understand the movement of the message, your choices become more natural.
I still make small mistakes sometimes. For example, I might start to say something like, "He said me," and then I stop and correct myself.
That's part of the process. The important thing is that you notice it and adjust.
Let me try a few more examples. She told me a story feels natural. She said something interesting also works. And she spoke to me about her day feels correct as well.
Those are all good examples. You're applying the pattern correctly.
I feel more confident now, even though I know I'm not perfect. At least I understand what I'm doing.
That's what matters. Improvement doesn't mean perfection. It means you're aware of your choices and you can adjust them.
I think this way of learning helps more than just memorizing rules. It feels more practical.
If this kind of conversation helps you, you can continue exploring similar topics with us. There are many small differences in English that work in the same way. They look simple, but they change how natural your speaking sounds.
Yes, and now I'm curious about other words like this. It feels like there are many similar patterns to discover.
There are many words like this. Small difference, big impact. And once you start noticing them, your English becomes clearer and more natural over time.